All right, I'm here with Jeff Degner, one of our professors across, I call him across the campus, is what I call most of our faculty and staff because most people are not in the athletic center. But Jeff, good to be with you today.
You too, Aaron. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Why don't you talk a little bit about yourself? Like how long you've been at Cornerstone? What exactly do you teach? And maybe where'd you come from before Cornerstone?
Yeah. So I've been at Cornerstone now going into my third year. I teach economics in the business division. And before that, I was actually teaching in the high school ranks for, oh gosh, 15 years or so.
Yeah.
And in the midst of all that, had done some football coaching and some years more successful than others. But that's my professional background. But as far as athletics goes, I was a high school athlete, but my father was actually a high school athletic director, and he actually did double duty for quite a while. He was um, both an athletic director and a principal for 12 years. So
Wow.
a lot of 70, 80-hour weeks for him. And so I saw the hard work that goes into the administrative side of athletics, experienced it as a coach. But even when I was a much younger kid, my dad was also a basketball coach prior to going into administration. And it was pretty cool to run around at practice and operate the old school scoreboard and hit the buzzer just for fun. And then, my dad hollers at me and you're out of the gym and that
Yep.
sort of thing. So, really just a lifelong experience with, you might say, scholastic athletics. And it's been a joy to see our athletes here on campus and the leadership roles that they take, the way that they represent the university, and ultimately the way that they represent the Lord in their lives.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome. It's
that's
good.
a little bit about me.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. The few of the last people that I've interviewed on these, they haven't been at Cornerstone for very long, like probably a lot of them less than 5 years, which I've seen a lot of change and a lot of new additions to Cornerstone, which has been great. What has been maybe one of the things that you really love about the Cornerstone community in your last 3 years?
Well, I think the fact that we call it a community, that really speaks volumes all by itself. We have a really an open door policy here in the business division, and so I think that's brought me the greatest joy as community with my colleagues, but also a sense of community with students where uh, they don't. I think sometimes I went to a big school. I went to Western Michigan, and there's a big intimidation factor with working with faculty as a student. You want to go in and get some help, but gosh, they're really busy or they're doing this or doing that. And I feel like our students get to experience that community as well by, again, having open doors to faculty's offices. And really that has created for me some pretty awesome mentorship opportunities. Since the business division is fairly large on campus, we actually have a pretty sizable load of advisees. And that just opens the door for lots of opportunities, for lots of conversations with our students broadly, but also to get to learn a little bit more about our athletes and have a one-on-one sit down every semester and see how things are going. And so that's been a reality. We don't just say a campus community, there's community on campus.
Yeah, that's great. I think most people would say that just about our community that we have at Cornerstone. I think one of the coolest things about I like to walk around campus and just pop myself into different people's offices or the business division, the humanities division, the Bible division, whatever it might be. Every time I go to the business office, there's always students in there just kind of hanging out. Now, the last 8 months been a little bit different just because of the COVID that we're in. But just to see the professors and the leadership of Dr. Hammond and everything that she's doing in her leadership in that of just making him a welcoming experience for our students.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And as a faculty member, you come in brand new, as you mentioned. I'm pretty new here, but having that sense of belonging right off the bat is really just a tremendous blessing to me and to my family. Um, I'm looking at the future here, the close future. My oldest daughter is going to be coming to Cornerstone, Lord willing, this coming fall, and she would not be here. She would not want to be a part of this campus if other faculty and other students who are on campus now have made her feel so welcome. She's currently a dual enrollment student, but that's the biggest draw for her. And she knows each of the professors here in the division pretty well. And there are a couple of professors in particular where she, even as a dual enrollment student, is able to pop in and have a conversation and just share what's happening in life and what's happening in the classes that she's currently enrolled in. So I get to experience that openness and that community as a faculty member, but also to see my own kids get to experience that. It's just been uh, really, I think, the most profound blessing to me.
Yeah, for sure. So changing gears a little bit here, I see behind you on that wall, you have got a lot of books. Now I'm guessing most of them are probably academic type books, but maybe not. Maybe they're your own personal love for reading.
Well, if you see up above me here, these are my old coaching books.
Okay.
These are some, this is from back in the day when in coaching football, you go to clinics and, you buy books and, all kinds of notes and diagrams and so forth. But I also have a pretty big library. Really, it honestly represents my journey in life, which is not very much a straight path. I started as an undergrad, wanting to study music, in fact, and that didn't work out. I shifted gears a couple times, and so along the line, I majored in biblical studies with a biblical language emphasis. I then also I eventually finished my undergrad with a history degree as well as an economics degree. And so the history tends to be pretty book heavy. So I think, back over here, you're looking at some of those history titles and so forth. But, that it just represents a journey. And I'm a big believer that the old saying that says that in 5 or 10 years, you're going to be the average of the books you read and the people you spend time with. And I feel like I've been very blessed to be surrounded by just great mentors and friends throughout my life, but also to be able to dive into some pretty serious books.
What's been one of the latest books that you've read? Can be a sports book or not.
Sure.
Everything doesn't have to be sports related, but what's been one of the recent books that you've read that you probably read again?
Yeah, I just finished up this last week a book by Michael Hyatt, Hyatt, and the book was called Free to Focus. And as a former coach, I tend to like systems. I like a systematic approach to practice and to offensive playing schemes. So what Hyatt does is really present a system for time management in Free to Focus. And just a really tremendous book. There's actually some worksheets to go through and sort of assess what's happening with your weekly schedule and priorities. But I think it was just a fantastic thing. When I look at the times I had spent in leadership, I thought to myself as I was reading the book, gosh, this would have been something great to get the whole team involved in and doing in terms of prioritizing what are your big three goals for some period of time, maybe a month or maybe a quarter or a season. Establish those big three goals and make sure that we're chipping away at those on a daily basis and really prioritize everything else as subordinate to that. And so that was a big takeaway on that book, but really a fantastic one in terms of time management. And at home on my nightstand right now, I'm reading just an older history book. It's just the history of Spain. It's my wife has kind of gone on the journey of doing an ancestry.com thing here in the last couple months, and she has a lot of Spanish roots. And so I thought, hey, let's look up a history of Spain. And so now I will admit that is on my nightstand. So that's what I eventually get myself to sleep with.
Yep.
That's that's another title that I'm handling right now. It's very enjoyable, more kind of leisurely reading.
There's not many authors that I've read over the years, not named John Gordon, that usually reading will definitely put me to sleep or at least calm me down. Or John Gordon, I can read a whole book in like one night because it's just captivating. He just keeps you going. He gives you he gives you quotables every single paragraph.
Mhm.
You want to highlight and highlight and highlight every single thing that he puts. But most of the time,
That's
I
great
think, yeah,
stuff.
it's those books that just kind of calms you down, get your brain to, in an athletic world that I'm in, it's just go, go, go. And so
Yeah.
the reading, it just slows you down. You have to slow down to read. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm reading the book that I'm reading right now is The Arm by Jeff Passan,
Okay.
focusing on like the history of the Tommy John surgery and just how
Oh, yeah.
the money that a arm in baseball can have. And
Mhm.
just a great story. I'm almost finished with that one. And then I just purchased Sam Acho's book. I'm
Okay.
really blank at the book or the name of it. Let the World See You, I think is titled. I haven't
Mm.
read it yet, but I just purchased it, so I'm looking forward to that one. So
Oh, very cool.
yeah. Well,
Yeah. As far
let's go into a little rapid fire as we start to wind down.
okay.
Obviously I'm going to guess football is going to be your sport, but if it's not football, what is
Mhm.
your favorite sport?
Yeah, it's football, specifically college.
College. Okay. What school?
I'm going to refrain from answering that because I know your associations.
You mean all of these ones? You mean like
Yeah, yeah. Uh, uh,
You can say Michigan. That's okay.
Michigan.
Okay, that's okay. I can say Michigan. I don't have
Well,
to say
I'm
it.
long suffering. Long suffering.
You know, Bob Sack and you would probably get along really well.
Oh yeah, Bob and I
Um,
we share our sorrows, and it's a support group at this point in time. Being a Michigan fan.
well, the '90s and the early 2000s were, oh goodness,
See,
so much.
that's when I grew up, and that seemed normal to me. But the last 20 years have shown otherwise.
Yeah, I just say as I was growing up, I was on the other side of it because we call those in Ohio, we call those the 2-10-1 years, the Cooper era.
Uh huh.
Didn't produce a whole lot of winning against the team up north or in bowl games. And I feel like that's the same thing that's happening against Michigan or for
Yep.
Michigan, but it's been 20 years, which is
Mm-hmm.
in the history of the rivalry. If you take away the
Oh,
first
very unusual.
25 years, the history of the rivalry has never seen this long of a one-sided affair,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is weird. I mean, the first 20 years, Michigan dominated because they had football before anybody else had football, and they just dominated before you wore helmets, and then it was leather helmets. They just dominated the whole world of college football.
Mm-hmm.
But then the turn of the century, really like 1900, the rivalry until from 1900 to 2000 was the best rivalry in all sports. You
Sure.
know,
Sure.
you just went back and forth for 100 years. So it's just crazy to think that, but I just keep telling my kids that are like, oh, they're
Oh,
just so confident. And I'm like, no, no, no. It's going to turn eventually. You just don't know when.
oh man. I just had my birthday yesterday, so I hope I get to see it in my lifetime.
Hopefully we get to see the game this year. You know, like
Yeah,
I mean, right
yeah,
now
that's
it's
in
not
doubt.
looking so good.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So Michigan football.
Yep.
How about, what is your favorite television show?
Oh man. So we're kind of more of a Netflix,
Okay.
subscription service household. So, oh man, I really love the 30 for 30s.
Hmm.
We recently got a different kind of package, and so I watched a few of those. But I being a Michigan guy, I've watched that Fab Five documentary, the Bad Boys documentary. Some of the other ones are just intriguing. In fact, as a history teacher back in the high school ranks, when we would get towards the tail end of the year and got into the late 1900s, I actually showed them the documentary, showed my students the documentary on June 17th, 1994. And that of course captured the O.J. Simpson, sort of the opening stages of that entire situation, but it also captured a lot of other things like Arnold Palmer's last round at the U.S. Open and New York Rangers winning the Stanley Cup. And it really just captured a cultural, historic, and sports moment. And the 30 for 30s just do a fantastic job of that. And my daughters are not big into sports, but they enjoy watching the 30 for 30s. They find it so informative. So I
You
really
hit on a couple of my favorite, the 30 for 30s, the Bad Boys and the Fab Five was
yeah.
two of my
So,
favorite ones. The story about the University of Miami,
yeah.
or the Pony Express, the story about SMU football. I mean, some of those, like, you just,
Bo Jackson one. I mean,
just so many
yeah,
good ones, right?
great stuff.
There's not many bad ones, you know? So,
Yeah. That's so interesting. The Bad Boys, that's something you definitely got to take a side on, right? So I grew up in Southwest Michigan, so all my friends were enamored with the Chicago Bulls because WGN was on TV and this sort of thing, and so I was kind of somewhat alone in my Piston fandom, and they hated Detroit. Of course, the feeling was mutual, towards MJ, the Bulls, and that sort of thing. But yeah, I remember those were some heated rivalries and a lot of fun.
yeah, I remember watching The Last Dance as it came out. That's like April, I think it was, right in the middle of the first quarantine, I guess we were in. And watching The Last Dance with my wife, it was the one thing we looked forward to on Sunday nights. It was just awesome. Like so many great memories. Because you just were in the driveway and doing all the Jordan moves and sticking out the tongue and playing as a Dennis Rodman. I mean, this was so much fun. So, all right. Well, let's end with a little more serious question.
Yeah.
I started these back in March and April with students, and then we built into faculty and staff. And I'd love to have them just send off, like, what's some encouraging words that you can send to our campus community right now, like kind of where we're at. We're away from each other for the next little bit here because of the break between semesters, but what's some encouraging words you can send to our community?
Well, this might not come off as encouraging right off the bat, but I would just encourage people, it's okay to feel a sense of sorrow and loss. It's okay to feel that, because on the other side of sorrow and loss is the promise of the Lord's sustaining power and love in our lives. We're told in the Psalms that those who go out with weeping will return with joy. And when we do experience different types of losses, I mean, it might be, not being able to get together with your family or teammates during a holiday season or a break the way that you normally would. And there's these sort of mini traditions that you wind up losing out on. It's okay to have a sense of sorrow over that and say that to the Lord, because those who are broken in spirit, those who are humble in spirit, those who sorrow, again, as the Psalms tell us, will return with joy. And so that's something that I think we need to give ourselves permission to do in times like this. I know that when I was coaching and when I was playing, but especially when I was coaching, when a season would end, it would be a little bit of a sense of loss. And I did go through a low period just about after every season, even the ones that didn't go so well with wins and losses, because you missed that fellowship, you missed that kind of camaraderie. And when we miss those things, it's okay again to feel sorrow, but do that with the daily reminders of the Lord's goodness, and that His sustaining power is present even in the midst of our sorrows and loss.
Awesome, good stuff. Well, I wanted to thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
These are great to get to know you. And I try to take the most to get around campus and see the faculty and staff. But these are just, wish we could just have more of these conversations almost every day. If we had more time in our day to have these kind of conversations. So I think we should get together over break and get to watch a 30 for 30 up at school. So
there you go. And just so you know, I won't be placing any bets with you with Ohio State game, okay?
I've been trying to get Bob to do some kind of a bet, like over the last.
Bob's wise with finances. He knows better than that.
I just asked him, like, hey, winner of the game, the other person wears the other jersey, like this one day at school. And he won't do it. So I'm calling him out publicly right now. All right. Thanks for joining me, Jeff.
All right. You bet, Aaron. Have a great day.